It's one of the most misunderstood forces in human nature, powerful enough to build civilizations, yet fragile enough to destroy a single relationship. We often talk about love, attraction, or chemistry, but rarely do we stop to ask, what is desire really trying to tell us? Especially male desire, a subject surrounded by stereotypes, confusion, and silence. Society tells us that men are driven by lust, by impulse, by the need to conquer, but beneath that surface lies a far more complex reality. Because male desire is not just about wanting someone, it's about wanting to be someone. Think about it. When a man desires a woman, he doesn't only see her body, he sees a reflection of what he wishes he could become: her confidence, her independence, her warmth, her validation. She becomes the mirror that shows him his missing pieces. What he truly craves is not the woman herself, but the feeling that arises in her presence, the feeling of being enough. And yet, this truth is often buried under layers of ego, insecurity, and misunderstanding. Many men confuse physical attraction with emotional fulfillment, and many women misunderstand male desire as shallow or fleeting. But deep down, every desire, even the ones we don't admit, carries a whisper from the soul. I want to be seen. I want to matter. Philosophers like Jacques Lacan argued that desire is not born from lack of satisfaction, but from the illusion of completion. We desire what we believe will make us whole. That's why no relationship, no matter how passionate, can ever fully satisfy us, because desire itself feeds on absence. It thrives on distance, on the space between what we have and what we long for. In that sense, desire is a paradox.
The more we chase it, the more it slips away. The more we try to possess the person we desire, the less real our connection becomes.
So what does she really want? Not your chase, not your perfection, not your dominance, but your presence. She wants you to see her, not as a prize, but as a person, to desire her, without losing yourself in the process. Because when desire becomes obsession, it kills love. But when desire becomes awareness, it deepens it. This is the truth most people never face. Male desire is not about sex. It's about significance. And the moment a man realizes, the moment he stops chasing validation through others, he begins to understand what true connection actually means. In this video, we're going to uncover what male desire really is, why it feels so powerful, and how both men and women can understand it to create deeper, more conscious relationships. To understand male desire, we first have to confront one uncomfortable truth. A desire is never just about the other person. It's a mirror, a projection of everything we crave, fear, and secretly wish to become. From a psychological perspective, male desire often begins as an emotional echo from early experiences. How a man was loved, how he was seen, how he learned to measure his worth. If his childhood love was conditional, based on achievement, compliance, or performance, he grows into a man who believes he must earn love through action, status, or desire. His adult relationships then become an unconscious stage where that script repeats itself again and again. In this sense, male desire often carries a silent question. Will she choose me? Not because of what I do, but because of who I am. But instead of facing that vulnerability, many men run from it. They hide behind the illusion of control. They chase beauty, success, or validation, anything that helps them feel powerful. Yet the irony is that the more they chase, the emptier they become, because desire without awareness becomes a cycle of repetition, a loop that promises fulfillment but delivers emptiness. This is where philosophy, and psychology intersect. The mirror of Lacan, and the nature of desire. Jacques Lacan, the French psychoanalyst, once said that desire is the desire of the other. What he meant was that desire is never truly our own. It's shaped by what others value. A man doesn't just want a woman. He wants the validation of being wanted by her. She becomes the gateway to self-worth. From this viewpoint, male desire isn't about possession, it's about recognition. The woman represents an external reflection of what he believes he lacks. Her affection becomes proof that he is desirable, significant, enough. And that's why male desire can be both intoxicating and dangerous. Because if your sense of worth depends on someone else's approval, your desire becomes a form of dependency. Not love, but hunger disguised as passion. The cycle of projection. Carl Jung, another great mind, warned us about the projection of the anima, the inner feminine that exists within every man. According to Jung, every man carries an inner image of the feminine, nurturing, wise, intuitive, mysterious. When he meets a woman who resembles that inner image, he projects his anima onto her. He feels as though he's found his other half. But in truth, he's fallen in love with a reflection of his own soul.
This is why so many relationships start with intensity and end with disillusionment.
At first, the woman seems to embody everything he's been missing, but over time, the illusion fades, and the real person, with flaws, fears, and complexities emerges. The man feels betrayed, not because she changed, but because his projection was never real. Philosophically, this is the tragedy of desire. It begins as a search for wholeness, but ends as a confrontation with reality. We desire what we think will complete us, yet the moment we get it, the desire transforms into something else, either dissatisfaction or attachment. The biological and psychological dance. From an evolutionary psychology standpoint, male desire has biological roots. The drive to reproduce, to spread one's genes, to seek novelty. But biology alone doesn't explain why men fall in love, why they suffer heartbreak, or why they stay faithful against instinct. That's because biology gives us the spark, but meaning gives us the flame. A man's desire matures when it evolves from instinct to intention, from wanting to possess to wanting to connect. Studies in behavioral psychology show that men are most drawn to women who awaken both their admiration and vulnerability. Admiration for who she is, and vulnerability in how she makes them feel. This duality confuses many men. They crave control, yet they also crave surrender. They want to be the protector, yet secretly long to be disarmed by authenticity. When a woman is truly confident, not in appearance, but in presence, she doesn't feed his ego, she challenges it. She doesn't validate his facade, she invites his truth. And that is where real desire begins. The 3 layers of desire. Physical desire, the instinctual. This is the most visible form of desire. Attraction, chemistry, the magnetic pole of beauty. It's the body's language, immediate and undeniable, but physical desire by itself is short-lived. Once the novelty fades, so does the intensity. Emotional desire, the relational. This level begins when connection enters the picture, shared laughter, emotional trust, vulnerability. Emotional desire transforms attraction into attachment. It's where the man no longer wants a woman, but this woman. Yet even this level can become unstable if built on fear of loss, rather than genuine appreciation. Existential desire, the spiritual. This is the rarest and deepest level, when desire becomes a vehicle for self-discovery. At this stage, attraction is not about what the other person provides, but about what the connection awakens within you. This is where love becomes transformative rather than transactional. Most men never reach the third level because it requires emotional courage, the willingness to see oneself clearly. But for those who do, desire becomes sacred. What she really wants. Here's the paradox. While men often seek validation through desire, women seek safety through understanding. She doesn't want to be adored for her beauty alone. She wants to be seen for her being. When she says, "I want you to understand me," she's not asking for intellectual understanding. She's asking for emotional presence. She wants to feel that your desire isn't just about taking, but about being with. This is where many men fail. Not out of malice, but ignorance. They chase outcomes instead of moments. They try to prove themselves instead of expressing themselves. The truth is, what women want is not perfection, but presence. They want a man who desires them consciously, who can admire their strength without being threatened, who can meet their vulnerability without turning away. Desire and the fear of powerlessness. Many men fear desire because it makes them feel powerless. To desire is to need, and to need is to admit dependence. This is why some men suppress emotion or turn to control. It's safer than surrender, but in doing so, they cut themselves off from the very energy that gives life depth. In philosophy, desire is not weakness. It's the engine of existence. Nietzsche wrote that to live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering. In that sense, desire is the tension that moves us. It reveals what we value most. To desire deeply is to live consciously, not recklessly. Desire as a teacher. If we listen closely, desire becomes a teacher. It shows us what we long for, what we lack, and what we fear. When a man desires a woman who is emotionally unavailable, it often mirrors his own fear of intimacy. When he chases someone who constantly withdraws, it reflects his unresolved need to prove his worth. Every desire, no matter how confusing, contains a message. This is where your work lies.
In this way, relationships are not just about love, they're about growth.
Through desire, we meet our own reflection. Through heartbreak, we meet our truth. From possession to presence, the ultimate transformation in male desire happens when a man stops using women as mirrors and starts seeing them as mirrors of his own consciousness. Instead of asking, "What can she give me?" he begins to ask, "What is this desire showing me about myself?" This shift changes everything. Desire is no longer something to chase or suppress. It becomes something to observe, to understand, to integrate. When a man desires consciously, he no longer needs to dominate or impress. His presence becomes magnetic, not because he's trying to be, but because he simply is. That quiet confidence, that stillness, it's what women intuitively respond to, because deep down, she doesn't want to be conquered. She wants to be met. The alchemy of conscious desire. In alchemical philosophy, transformation occurs through tension. Fire refines, pressure purifies. The same applies to desire. When desire is unconscious, it burns. When it's conscious, it illuminates. Male desire, when awakened, becomes devotion, not the blind worship of another person, but the recognition of beauty as sacred. It becomes an act of awareness, not possession. It's when a man can say, "I want you, not to complete me, but to share this moment of being alive." That's the essence of what she really wants.
Not a man who needs her to validate his worth, but a man who already knows who he is and chooses her freely, consciously, completely.
Desire, when stripped of its illusions, is not just about attraction, it's about identity. It reveals who we are when we think no one is watching. It exposes our insecurities, our longings, our hunger for meaning. When a man looks at a woman with desire, he's not just seeing her, he's seeing himself reflected back in her eyes. That reflection can either awaken him or trap him, and which of those happens depends entirely on his level of awareness. Let's look deeper.
The psychology of projection and need.
Every man carries an emotional blueprint, the invisible map formed in childhood, showing how love was given and withheld. Some were taught that love had to be earned, others that it could be taken, and a rare few that it could simply be. If love in his early life was inconsistent, his adult desire becomes a pursuit of reassurance. He doesn't just want affection, he wants certainty. When he meets a woman who triggers that old uncertainty, his attraction intensifies. The paradox is cruel. We often desire what wounds us, not because we enjoy pain, but because we subconsciously seek to rewrite the past. That's why some men chase unavailable women or remain loyal to those who make them feel small, because unconsciously they are trying to finally win the love they couldn't secure as boys. It's not romance, it's repetition. It's not chemistry, it's compulsion. Understanding this changes everything. Once a man becomes aware of this pattern, desire loses its power to control him. He can still feel it, but he's no longer enslaved by it. He can love consciously, not reactively. 2. The philosophical paradox of desire.
Philosophically, desire lives in the space between what is and what is not.
It exists because something feels missing, a gap between the self and its ideal. In this sense, desire is both beautiful and tragic. It moves us forward, but never lets us arrive. Schopenhauer once wrote that life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. Pain when we desire, boredom when we achieve. But modern thinkers suggest a new path, transcendence through awareness. Instead of escaping desire, we can transform it by understanding its nature. To desire consciously means to see the illusion without rejecting it. It's to say, yes, I feel this pull, but I know it's pointing to something deeper. The woman isn't the completion of his life. She's the invitation to wholeness. She awakens in him the very qualities he must find within himself: empathy, courage, tenderness, self-respect. When he mistakes her for the source of those qualities, he becomes dependent. When he recognizes her as the mirror, he becomes free. 3. The female perspective. What she feels in the face of desire. Women often sense when a man's desire is not about them, but about what they represent. They feel when he's looking through them instead of at them, when he seeks validation, not connection. To a woman, this kind of desire feels heavy. It asks her to play a role rather than be herself. That's why she withdraws, why she tests, why she resists being idealized. She doesn't want to be the symbol of someone else's missing piece. She wants to be a partner in presence. What she really wants is not adoration, but attunement. The sense that the man across from her is aware, not lost in fantasy. That's why calm confidence attracts her more than performance, and why vulnerability moves her more than perfection. She doesn't want to be chased endlessly. She wants to be met deeply. 4. The inner conflict, desire versus love. Here lies the most profound tension of all. The difference between desire and love. Desire wants to consume. Love wants to understand. Desire seeks pleasure. Love seeks truth. Desire thrives on mystery. Love thrives on clarity. Yet, they need each other. Desire without love burns out. Love without desire fades. The challenge is not to choose between them, but to unite them, to desire what you also respect, and to love what still excites you. When a man matures emotionally, he learns that real desire isn't about intensity, it's about depth. The quiet pull of connection that doesn't vanish when passion cools, the curiosity to keep discovering the person he's with, long after the chase is over. In that maturity, desire stops being an escape from emptiness and becomes an expression of fullness. Vive, the role of self-reflection. Every time a man feels strong desire, it's an invitation to pause and ask, what is this feeling trying to teach me? If it's rooted in insecurity, it will demand control. If it's rooted in emptiness, it will demand validation. But if it's rooted in awareness, it will become compassion. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. Desire is the message. Once you understand what it's pointing to, you no longer need to chase its object. The lesson is complete. The more a man reflects on his own desire, the more he learns about himself, about what he values, what he fears, and what he's still healing from. 6. The modern dilemma, the digital mirror. Today's culture amplifies confusion around desire. Social media, dating apps, and online validation have turned attraction into a marketplace of illusions. Men are bombarded with images that trigger instinct, but dull meaning. Desire becomes entertainment, a dopamine loop rather than an emotional connection. Philosophically, this is a dangerous trap. When desire is reduced to consumption, we lose touch with reverence. When everything is available instantly, we forget how to appreciate what is earned through time, attention, and presence. That's why conscious desire feels almost rebellious in today's world. It's rare to see someone pause before reacting, to choose connection over convenience. But those who do, those who bring awareness into their desire, experience a kind of intimacy that no algorithm can imitate. 7. The path toward wholeness. At its core, male desire is a compass. It points not toward another person, but toward the parts of himself he's forgotten. Each attraction, each heartbreak, each longing is a step in the journey back to authenticity. When a man stops using desire to escape his pain and instead uses it to explore his soul, something extraordinary happens. He becomes whole. He no longer needs to prove, perform, or possess. His presence becomes enough. And ironically, that's when he becomes most desirable, because there is nothing more magnetic than someone who no longer needs to be. This understanding changes relationships entirely. Two aware individuals no longer come together to fill each other's voids. They come together to share their fullness. Desire becomes a bridge, not a battlefield. 8. The philosophical endgame. Desire as enlightenment. Many ancient traditions saw desire not as a sin, but as a path to awakening. In Buddhism, desire, tani, is the cause of suffering, but not because it's evil, it's because we cling to it. The moment we observe desire without attachment, it transforms into awareness. Similarly, in Taoist philosophy, the balance of yin and yang mirrors the harmony of masculine and feminine energy. Desire is the current that flows between them, not to dominate, but to unite. And in existential philosophy, thinkers like Sartre and Kierkegaard viewed desire as the essence of freedom, to choose, to long, to reach, even knowing that fulfillment may never come. Desire reminds us that we are alive, that we care, that something in us still reaches for meaning. So perhaps the goal is not to conquer desire, but to walk with it consciously as a companion on the road to self-realization. In this light, male desire is no longer a source of guilt or confusion, but a profound opportunity for growth. It's the invitation to meet oneself through the eyes of another, to turn longing into learning, and to transform the fire of wanting into the light of awareness. So, what is the truth about male desire? It's that desire is not the enemy of love. Ignorance is. It's not desire that ruins relationships, but the refusal to understand what it's truly trying to say. Male desire, at its core, is not hunger for another's body. It's a longing for meaning, for recognition, for connection. When a man says he wants a woman, what he's really saying is, I want to feel alive in your presence. I want to remember who I am when I am with you. But that feeling cannot come from possession. It can only come from awareness. When a man seeks validation through desire, he becomes a prisoner of it. When he seeks understanding through desire, he becomes liberated by it. Because true desire doesn't want to take, it wants to experience. It wants to meet another soul in the space where both masks fall away. This is the transformation that separates the ordinary from the awakened. The ordinary man chases desire as proof of worth. The awakened man sees desire as a reflection of truth. He no longer asks, how can I have her? But instead, what is this feeling showing me about myself? And when he brings that awareness into connection, when he desires without grasping, when he loves without losing himself, he finally gives her what she truly wants: presence. Presence is not just being physically there, it's being emotionally alive, mentally curious, spiritually grounded. It's the calm energy that says, you don't need to perform for me, you are already enough. That is what melts her defenses. That is what opens her heart. Because what she really wants is not your perfection, but your participation in the present moment, without pretense or performance. When a man can desire consciously, love becomes something sacred again. Desire turns from a storm into a rhythm, from hunger into harmony. It becomes not a flame that burns out, but a fire that sustains. And maybe that's the real truth about desire. It's not something to overcome, but something to understand. Because in understanding it, you understand yourself. In the end, desire is not about who you want, it's about what you're awakening to within. Every attraction is a teacher. Every longing is a mirror. Every heartbreak is a doorway. When you stop running from what you feel and start listening to what it means, you'll find that what you were chasing was never out there. It was always waiting inside you. The capacity to love, to see, to be. So before you chase another dream, another person, another illusion, pause. Ask yourself not who you want, but why. Because when you know that answer, desire becomes no longer a fire that consumes, but a light that guides. And perhaps that's what both he and she have been wanting all along.